Beautiful, mysterious, and often lethal, the mermaid is a graceful creature that has captured the imagination and desires of man since we first set to sea. A peculiar hybrid, the mermaid is a unique aquatic creature found throughout the world. With the upper torso of a human merged with the tail of a fish, it is able to breathe in both ocean and atmosphere, and is often found on rocks, near a shoreline, or even swimming alongside ships. The countenance and personality of the mermaid varies as often as the details of its form, from beautiful and lustful to hideous and lethal, and sometimes a mixture of these traits. The mermaid is perhaps one of the most human-like of all creatures, frequently expressing their individual personalities, something few other mythical beasts can do. A social creature, the mermaid is often encountered in groups of a dozen or so individuals, and they are intelligent enough to communicate not only with each other, but with anyone who happens upon them. Indeed, it is even believed that they have created entire underwater societies very similar to our own, further serving to demonstrate their very human-like intelligence. With this intelligence comes the capacity for great love and great malice. There are occasional reports of singular individuals managing to win the hearts of these creatures, despite the differences in habitat. However, mermaids are more commonly found attempting to drown amorous men, or luring ships onto rocky shorelines with the intent of seeing them dashed, where they might kill the crew on board. The allure of the mermaid is clearly quite powerful, and it is further enhanced by their beautiful and bewitching voices. With an unearthly sound, the mermaid is able to carry tunes and melodies unlike anything even the most skilled of human singers may achieve. The mermaid is also found in lakes and rivers, and as such has affected more than the lives of adventurers and traders. From hindering travelers to crowning the greatest of our kings, the mermaid has made a clear mark in our history. This is not the only form the mermaid may take. From old devilish hags to young mischievous children, there are even male forms of this creature known as mermen. Although these variations are found less frequently, they nevertheless serve to demonstrate the very human-like characteristics these creatures have, experiencing sexual dimorphism as well as aging. As is plain to see, the mermaid is a fascinating creature, at once so human and yet so essentially different. It is a truly unique beast. The mermaid is found all over popular culture today, making it one of the most commonly used creatures in fiction, alongside dragons, zombies, vampires, and werewolves. From children's toys to movies and even swimsuits, the mermaid is surprisingly ubiquitous considering its strange and essentially weird nature. This surprise is rendered all the more curious when we consider that other similar human-animal amalgams, such as centaurs, lamia, or sphinxes, are not only uncommon, but also lack the aesthetic desirability of the mermaid. No doubt this is somewhat related to the myth of the mermaid relying on the idea that the creature is eminently attractive. This attractiveness is most prominently articulated in mermaid imagery through the frequent depiction of the creature holding a mirror and comb as she grooms herself. This pose is often found in paintings and heraldry across Europe. However, this aspect isn't the only reason for this creature's popularity, as the beast has the uncommon privilege of being fully characterized in various media, most notably the many iterations of the Little Mermaid. It is interesting to note that many similarly popular mythical creatures have been characterized in much the same way. However, it is impossible to know if this anthropomorphization gave the creature its present popularity, or if this popularity led inexorably to these more human-like depictions, more specifically in the Disney rendition of The Little Mermaid. Released in 1989, the Disney version of The Little Mermaid makes many changes to the original story by Hans Christian Andersen, in particular by giving it an ending significantly more palatable to younger audiences, and changing the depiction of the mermaid from a lustful carnivore to a young and essentially human princess. Although the mermaid is found in many cultures throughout the world, the most popular depiction comes to us from Western European and British folklore and tradition, which are born from the myths and stories from ancient Greece, and indeed it is from this version that the above Disney princess originates. From the Arthurian Lady of the Lake to playful naiads and various forms of water nymphs, European and British traditions have produced a myriad of mermaid species, including the masculine merman and hideous water hag. It is plain to see that the mermaid is quite important to Western culture, with several docu-fiction shows airing on Animal Planet, causing an H.G. Wells level of misunderstanding upon their initial publication. This accompanies various hoax findings and sightings of the mermaid, most notably in the 17th century, where John Tredescant the Elder created a wonder room wherein he supposedly kept a mummified mermaid's hand. And later in the 19th century, P.T. Barnum created a grotesquerie by sewing the limbs of a fish onto a dismembered monkey's torso, which was later replicated to a surprising degree in the aftermath of the 2004 tsunami in the Indian Ocean. At last, there are also instances of mermaid and similar creatures in horror fiction as well, most notably in the short story The Shadow over Innsmouth, a story written by H.P. Lovecraft that follows the protagonist through his slow and horrific transformation into a human-fish hybrid. However, European and Western societies aren't the only cultures to produce this mythical creature. The Middle East has several myths of sea people who are physically the same as ordinary human beings, with the only difference being that they live in the ocean, similar to the aforementioned Lady of the Lake. Although these creatures have no unique identifying name, they are often simply called mermaids in the various translations of Middle Eastern folklore. Similarly lacking a unique cultural name, the Chinese mermaid is very similar to the Middle Eastern variation of this creature, in that it is entirely humanoid in form, where the only difference is that these creatures are covered in multicolored fur, with some descriptions of occasional webbed fingers to indicate the aquatic nature of this creature. Southern Asia has several more specific tales of mermaids, such as the story of Suvarnamaka, which roughly translates to the Golden Mermaid, and tells of the adventures of a water princess who attempts to prevent the god Hanuman from building a large bridge to Lanka. However, she eventually falls in love with him, ultimately foiling her plans. Further minor variations do exist in other cultures, but these are in no way as developed as the European mermaid. Globalization and various forms of media has seen the European mermaid grow in prominence and fame, making it an important cultural touchstone for people the world over. The mermaid is a surprisingly old creature that would appear to find its origin in ancient Greece and the Near East, with famous individuals such as Pliny the Elder mentioning them in his writings. With such a long history, it's not surprising to see that the origin of this creature has been considered quite thoroughly and has perhaps been identified in its entirety. Thus, the general consensus is that the manatee is perhaps the most likely progenitor of this myth. With its generally human shape and somewhat similar form to that of the mermaid, many people have drawn the conclusion that this creature is the fabled mermaid of yore. Although when we look at this bulbous mammal, it is difficult to imagine how seamen may come to mistake it for being in any way related to human beings. Usually the strange perception is attributed to the libidinous fog clouding the sailor's vision after many weeks at sea without female contact. This is somewhat doubtful, as even the most lustful of men could hardly mistake this to resemble anything approaching a human being. Indeed, there is a more simple answer for this misapprehension, and it's something that we often overlook, which is the fact that the ocean quite easily obscures the vision of those looking into it, showing only flickering silhouettes of the creatures within. Once we consider that the silhouette of the manatee is somewhat humanoid, we can perhaps better understand why these ancient sailors might mistake it for being a human-fish hybrid, as the general form when seen from above is somewhat more humanoid than when observed when the creature is on land. Christopher Columbus supposedly encountered manatees that he mistook for mermaids, writing,
"They came quite high out of the water, but were not as pretty as depicted, for somehow, in the face, they looked like men."
This is perhaps further demonstrated when we consider that the manatee and its ilk most frequently occur in areas where stories of the mermaid are most common. The human silhouette is in fact so similar to that of a dugong, manatee or seal that a common hypothesis for the occurrence of shark attacks is that these predators are, when seeing humans from below, unable to distinguish the shadow of a human being from those of their regular prey items, further serving to demonstrate the validity of this concept. Indeed, with all of these aspects considered, it would well seem that the origin of the mermaid finds its home in the manatee. Despite all this additional rationale, the fact that the origin of this myth is so well considered that one can easily come across it bears testament to this creature's fame and importance in popular culture. A particularly weird creature, the mermaid is difficult to reify, in that its nature as an amalgam of two entirely separate forms of life cannot normally be reconciled. So how might this creature come to exist in so specific a form? Initially, we might consider that human beings could evolve along a path similar to that taken by whales. Where once whales were relatively slow land-dwelling creatures, they had, over time, come to readopt features and structures better suited to the ocean. Similarly, a human being might, in much the same way, come to return to the ocean, in a manner reminiscent of the shadow over Innsmouth. This kind of evolution would see the human perhaps resembling what we might consider to be a mermaid, at least as a transitionary species. In following with the whale, we could expect this creature to be an air-breathing mammal, capable of a wide range of vocalizations, falling in line with the myth of the mermaid's unparalleled singing ability. Although we may certainly find its appearance also following that set by whales, with more fat and a bulkier size seemingly the hallmark of these readapted mammals. Indeed, it may well be no different from a manatee in this sense. However, when we consider the man-eating carnivorous aspect of the mermaid, we are led to rethink its nature, altering it from a natural and benign evolution to a more sinister visage. Often we encounter in nature predatory animals that lure their prey into a position best suited for capture rather than by actively hunting. Examples such as the anglerfish, snapping turtle, or green heron, to name but a few, all employ some form of trickery to catch their next meals. This is particularly noticeable in the case of the snapping turtle, where it will lay motionless with its mouth agape, using its worm-like tongue to attract fish into the range of its maw. As is plain to see, this is decidedly reminiscent of the myth of the mermaid as a siren, luring sailors to their deaths with their beautiful voices and attractive features. Thus, the mermaid might well be a fish with a highly specialized luring tactic, hungry for the flesh of human beings who wander too close to its trap. In fact, this leads to more concerning thoughts as to the true nature of the mermaid. Although, upon further consideration, this adaptation would be quite unlikely, as, outside of Lamarckian evolution, there would hardly be a chance for such a specific lure to evolve in nature, and this would severely limit the creature's diet to human beings. Advantages such as hands notwithstanding, this would then be a decidedly unfavorable evolution, unless the lure would be adapted to attract larger sea creatures that have been known to attack humans, such as sharks. Quite a dangerous prospect indeed. Regardless of the manner in which the mermaid might manifest, there is little doubt as to the importance of this creature in the world's cultures, making it a singularly fascinating beast to consider. What's more is that this creature's existence does not seem to be entirely impossible, regardless of which avenue one might prefer to employ in rendering its existence. Who knows what we may yet find in the briny deep?
There is no